So I went to two conventions this weekend, a 90s con and a toy show. It was full of retro stuff. So let's take a look and see what they had in store. So I'm going to go through my haul and I'll show you what I picked up. And two things I picked up was a Mall Madness Journey Through the Malls in the 90s and a Keener action figure toy guide, the Ultimate Collection. Now, these aren't real items, but they're custom made. The gentleman who was there at the 90s convention, that's his name right there, he made both of these. And he took photos from the internet and his own personal photos and made these custom books. So they're pretty cool. So you look at the malls in the 90s, he's got like old pictures of retro stores, the Disney store, KB Toys. Here's some more retro stuff. Old figures. Sears. Old stores. Classic 90s mall eatery locations. Kmart. Classic old Disney store. And I remember the Disney store look. The mall that I lived by used to have that too. One of my favorite stores to go in. Wish it still existed. Suncoast. Anybody remember Suncoast? That was a cool movie store. More Disney store. Old figures. So yeah, that was the mall. Looked at the malls in the 90s. It was a good throwback and a pretty cool retro magazine. Now let's take a look at the Kenner action figure toy line made. So we have Aliens. Bad Beasts. And of course, one of my personal favorites, Batman's, with Batman 89 figures and vehicles. Joker. Batcopters. Bat vehicles. Bat cars. Dress up. Batman Returns, Batmobile. Batcave, Batman Returns. New Batman Returns figures. And what is cool about this book is that I like that it looks like it's the back of the box. So it's like if you pick up the figure or he got it from a toy magazine. So it's really cool. We got Batman Forever. I had that Two-Face right there. And the Batwing. I always thought the Batwing from Batman Forever was underrated. I always thought it was a cool looking Batman. Batmobile. Or Batwing, I should say. It was really cool. And that was one of my favorite scenes in Batman Forever is when the Batwing came out and they went to go stop Riddler and Joker. I always liked the Batmobile too. I thought it was pretty cool. I know it's not a lot of people's favorites, but I always liked the design of it. The Batboat. More Batman figures. And what was funny about Batman in the 90s is that they made Batman in every different shade of color. Green, orange, white. He had different outfits that he never had in the movie. And here we have some Batman and Robin figures. I had the Poison Ivy. I had the Mr. Freeze. I had the Robin. I had a lot of these. Bane I had. Ice to Sea. And then we have some other Batman figures. The Batmobile and the Batman playset. And here we have Batman the Animated Series, which was my personal favorite growing up. We have a couple Batman, Robin, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman. Some of the vehicles. The Batmobile, which, yeah, and I had that Joker mobile. That was cool. I remember his mouthpiece came flying off. It's cool. The Batcave. Batman Crime Squad. I had this copter right here. And speaking of Batman the Animated Series figures, I actually picked him up at the con. I don't own a lot of these in the box. I have a whole bunch of them, but they're loose from my childhood. So I wanted to, start getting them in the box. And they didn't really have a lot of retro action figures in that 90s con. They had a couple, but this was like one of the best ones they've had. And, it's a classic look. I love the box of this, so I picked up Bane in the box. And, he was always one of my favorites to play with the kid. I always liked the coolness of the tentacle, the vein tentacles, and you push him up and he throws the wire. It's cool. And here's the back of the box. All the figures you can collect. Now the box isn't in the best shape. It's a little bent, but I'll take it. It didn't cost me too much, and it was still cool to see. I was hoping for more of these retro figures from the 90s. They didn't really have a lot, and for Batman the Animated Series, this is the only one they had. But I thought it was a good grab to pick up. Moving on, we have Legends of Batman. I had that Azrael one, the Nightquest Batman. That was cool. I always liked the Nightquest storyline. Thought it was underrated as how storyline goes. More Batman. Total Justice. I had Darkseid. I had a couple of these guys. Dark Force. Dynamic Dual Forces from Batman. More Total Justice. Beast Wars. I had a couple of these. I wasn't really into them too much. They were animals that transformed. Or robots that transformed into animals. Beetlejuice. I didn't have any of these. More Beetlejuice figures. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. More Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Bone Age, which I don't even remember these. I don't know if any of you guys do, but I do not remember the Bone Age, but cool. Building Blasters. Capital Critters, which these I don't remember one bit. Mice and such. It's cool. The Claw. Congo. Dragonheart. I remember the Dragonheart pictures. Gargoyles. Which I didn't really watch this show growing up, but I knew of it, and I remember the figures were always cool, and I collected some of them. I don't really have many of them anymore, but they're pretty cool. Gargoyles Castle. Gargoyle series. And now we have the real Ghostbusters, which were popular, but unfortunately I did not have many of them, but they're cool, like the dress-up Ghostbusters, the figures, the ghosts. Slimer. He was always my favorite, Slimer. Play sets. More ghosts. More dress-ups for the Ghostbusters. Vehicles. Then we have some G.I. Joe figures. Jurassic Park. I always liked the Jurassic Park line. It was cool. Even though they didn't really make, a lot of guys from the movies. Most were the dinosaurs, but they're still cool. The classic Jurassic Park vehicle. Spark Hideout. Masks second. The Mask. His figures were always cool. Mega Forces. More Mega Forces. Mortal Kombat figures. Nerf guns. We didn't play with Nerf as a kid. I had a whole bunch of Nerf products. Nerf guns. Police Academy. More Police Academy. Rat Funk figures. Robin Hood. Police set. RoboCop. Savage Marble Blitzers. Shadow Strike. Some more Shadow Strike vehicles. Sky Commanders. And now we have Star Wars now. I collected Star Wars heavily as a kid, and I had a lot of these Power of the Force figures. I had almost the whole line. Vehicles, Falcon, more Power of the Force figures. Shadow of the Empire, I remember when I did those. More Star Wars figures. I had that Jabba. Superman the Animated Series figures, which I liked, but I didn't like as much as the Batman ones. Swamp Thing. And T2. So that was it. I hope that took you back to some of you guys who grew up in the 90s and had some of these figures, or if you were just an adult at the time and collected them in the box. So that was really neat. Both of these were really neat, and I'm glad I picked them up because it was a good flashback. That's what I went for the 90s con for, is to bring me back to my childhood, and this exactly did it. So I appreciate that he made these. I also picked up these Disney Tiny Kingdoms. There for Christmas. I used to have these as a kid, and I had like all of them except for Jack Skellington. And this is what I picked up. And, being in the box, it's really cool. It's a really cool pickup. And I think they made a whole bunch of Disney movies, but I only had the Nightmare Before Christmas ones. And I was a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, so I was glad to pick this one up. They had it at the convention. And this one only cost me $20. They had a few comics there, but I'm going to another comic convention next week, so I decided to hold off. But I did pick up one, and this was Phony Bone #3. Now, this is the second print. The second print has the blue writing. The first print has the green one. The first print, if it was first printed, I would love to have that because that one goes for a lot. But still, I like the cover. It reminds me of the classic Golden Age cover. and Bone is a really good story. It's one of my favorite comic stories. So I figured it was, this one it was only 20, so I figured it was cool to pick this one up. And it's the third appearance of Bone, even though it's a second print. I'm still glad to have it in my collection. Now I also picked up X-Men: The Art and Making of the Animated Series. But what was cool about it is that both Eric Eric Lewald and Julie Lewald both were there, and I had them sign the book. They gave me a X-Men issue 1 Night of the Sentinels, a draft of the first script, and they both signed it. And they signed in here. Both of them signed for me. And I was able to chat with them for a little bit, and we talked about the upcoming show coming up and how he was excited about it. And we talked about some of his favorite characters, and he said his favorite character was Professor X himself because he was like the leader of the X-Men. He was the showrunner. And then we talked about all the good stuff about the show. We also mentioned that if Deadpool was in the upcoming new show, and he couldn't really say, but he was hopeful that he was going to be in it. And we talked about, he was a good guy to talk to. Him and his wife. They did a few shows, but this was his main show, and since he was there, I talked to him for a little bit, and he was a good guy. Now that's him. That's them right there making the show. Some drawings, and then he told an interesting story about Magneto, where he said that the showrunners wanted Magneto to be the main villain in the first episode, but they pushed for the Sentinels because the Sentinels were, giant robots after mankind, so it was kind of given the human perspective against the mankind, and also too, Wolverine is a popular character, and all kids wanted to see is Wolverine rip things to shreds, and he couldn't do that to Magneto because Magneto has magnetism. So seeing Wolverine ripping Sentinels to shreds, it's really cool. We talked about the opening and how iconic it was a little bit, and he came up with the idea. The Infigo came up with the opening, so that was cool. And yeah, he was a good guy to meet. So now I have this. X-Men was one of my favorite series growing up in the 90s. That and Batman the Animated Series, one of my favorite. So it was cool to talk to him. So this was definitely a good grab. One of my favorite grabs I grabbed from the convention. So that was everything I picked up at these two conventions. And I want to know, what was your favorite Keener action figure? Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video.